What Frank knew is actually one of the biggest mysteries of Outlander. That's why Diana Gabaldon is writing an entire book titled What Frank Knew. But the fact is, he knew a lot. Starting with the book that he wrote, The Soul of a Rebel, which is about Scottish rebels and their involvement in the American Revolution. In book 9, we learn that Jamie is the first person to actually read Frank's book, and that for whatever reason, Brianna and Claire have both chosen not to. One of the big reveals of Frank's book is that a man named James Fraser is going to die in a battle on King's Mountain, very close to Fraser's Ridge. This is where things get very interesting, because what do we know about Frank? He is a very astute man, and he is very driven by history. He is never going to document anything in a book if he does not believe it to be factual, because to him, history and documenting it properly is everything. Being said, why does he have a book that is documenting the death of Jamie when Jamie is still alive? He goes up to the battle on King's Mountain. Technically, he does die and he is resurrected by Claire. I have millions of videos on that. We're not going to dig into it here. The person who tells Claire that Jamie has passed away are other officers from the army who are going back down to check in with their general. And it has always been my belief that they reported that Jamie was deceased. It becomes part of the record, and that becomes part of history. And from that point, Frank just kind of stops searching for Jamie and figures that is the end. I have to assume at that point that Frank knows everything that Brianna and Claire have traveled back there and are with Jamie, because he's having dinners with George Washington, he's meeting with Lafayette, he's a big part of history of the Revolutionary War, and there's a lot of records about Fraser's Ridge. So then naturally you start thinking about in the letter that Frank leaves to Brianna, and he is telling her how she is in danger from MI6 and the Funny Buggers, and that there are people after her because of the Fraser prophecy, and he puts the family chart. He never mentions Mandy, and he never mentions Jemmy. Starts to ponder, how are Jemmy and Mandy recorded in history, and what generation will they be recorded as? Mandy develops her heart condition, and they have to go back to the 80s so that she can get surgery. It's actually Joe Abernathy who performs the surgery and saves her life. And he is very involved with the Frasers and with Claire and Brianna as a whole in the books than he is in the show. He knows about time travel. He knows about Mandy and Jemmy's powers. He is the one who actually helps Roger figure out that Brianna traveled back. He helps Brianna when she is running from Rob Cameron. He's much more involved in the show. Sorry, he's much more involved in the books than he was in the show, but I digress. So anyways, in order for her to get surgery and to exist in the 80s, they have to create a birth certificate of sorts. So Claire creates this birth certificate for Mandy saying that she was part of a hippie commune and she was born on the commune, and they're just now registering her to get this surgery. This is another example of how you have to follow the timeline for each individual person. On Frank's timeline, when 1980 comes around, he is already deceased, so he never sees the birth record of Mandy. Mandy has children in the past, that's a whole nother loophole. And we skip to A Leaf on the Wind of All Hallows, where we learn that Frank, working with MI6, has sent 3 pilots on secret covert missions to document and photograph concentration camps in Poland. One of the pilots is Roger's father, Jerry Mackenzie, and the second is a man named Paul Rakowski. In the space between novella, we learn that the Comte Saint-Chamond has survived the poisoning in Paris. It is 30 years later. He is a time traveler, and he is going by the name of Paul Rakowski. Now, everyone caught the connection to that name and asked Diana Gabaldon if that is the pilot from The Leaf on the Winds of All Hallows, to which she responded, no, but he is a family member. I then went on this total deep dive of the real Le Comte Saint-Chamond throughout history and learned that his father is named Paul Rakowski. So I believe that the other pilot besides Roger's father was the Comte's father in this book. In a live stream, me, Jenny, and Stacy were talking about this, and Stacy brought up the point that why would MI6 have 2 pilots who are time travelers go up on these missions and they both had faulty engine or fuel line leaks on their planes? Jenny's always talked about how she believes that the cameras are taking pictures to document the time travel. Both of these things support the thought that I've had and that I've been talking about for quite a long time, that the mission was actually about testing the limits of time travel and who was capable of it and what the parameters around it were. Whether Frank knew that or not, we just won't know till we get his book. Arguably, I'm just as excited for as book 10.